The training today we said is about the correction. Why is the correction? We identified from the time I was field trainer for Unifield and today at the support team in Amsterdam that the correction is one of the big difficulty for the users in Unifield because it is complex. You have to study 3 variables in order to identify how to do the correction you want to do. So we realize also that people have one mistake, then they start to do one correction. Then they realize that that correction, that OD, didn't correct their mistake, then they do a second OD. But that second OD didn't correct even the first or the second one, then they do third OD. So it happened that it arrived at my level when we have already something like 5 or 6 entries which are related each other, and it happened to me one day 3 hours trying to understand what is the initial entry, what is the second entry, and what is the next entry which was corrected by what. So we realized, we talked with the finance department and the training in Unifield, saying that it's good to refresh our knowledge about how to do the correction. It is not giving new information. I guess 70% of this is already known by everyone, but just the point is sometimes things are getting mixed in your head, and then so we try to develop something interactive showing step by step. Please raise your hand if you have questions, if you want to share concern. At the end we will do some exercises. I want someone from the attendee to participate. Okay, so the correction, what we will see is the use of the correction matrix. What is the correction matrix? It means that this general understanding, it's not to do it in Unifield, but to understand what kind of correction I have to do when I have this or that cases. And it's very important to have that because we have to compose 3 variables. What is the status of the entry, what kind of entry we have, and what part of this entry we want to correct. So depending on the answer to those 3 questions, we know how to do it. But for this correction, we are dealing only with the hard posted entries or validated supplier invoice or validated manual journal entry or validated recurring entries. It means that if the entry is still not posted, stamp posted, or in drafts, we do know that this is not called correction. That is called edition. You are editing the entry, you just modify something and save your modification. There is no correcting entry booked by the system out of that. So it's important we know that if it is stamp, we know how to edit. If it is draft, how to edit. But now we are in a situation that we've posted already the entry. And this is why we deal only with advanced users, because you already give the green light to hard post the entry. The entry has been posted, then you realize yourself that there is mistake, then you have to know how to do the correction. After that, we'll see how to use the correcting wizard, reversal, how to do the reversal, just a reminder, and the refund process. Okay, so as I said, the first question to ask is what to correct. So if we are correcting the expense account and analytical distribution, here in some of the old documentation of Unifield, you might have like Bangladesh, which was deployed at the beginning, you might have documentation saying that if you want to correct accounting code, this is not 100% true. The correct one is you want to correct expense account. If it is a balance sheet account, then you don't use the answer which will come after. We want to correct expense account or the analytical distribution. So funding pool, destination, or cost center, or the expense account. Was it a direct entry? Was it a supplier invoice validated? Was it a payroll entry? Was it a HQ entry? Was it a recurring entry? Whatever is the entry we've booked, it was posted on Unifield directly, and we want to correct the expense account or the analytical distribution. In that case, we use the correcting wizard. We will see afterward how to use the correcting wizard, but that is the answer to the question. So first thing you ask, what do I want to correct? My entry has been posted. I want to correct something. What do I want to correct? Do I correct the expense account from 61220 to 61222, I don't know what? Then yes. So I do the correcting wizard. I do not do manual journal entry. I do not do reversal. I do not do something else. I am using the correction wizard. And that is the only answer to the question. Then you might correct something else, which is not the expense account, which is not the analytic, which is, could be the dates, posting date, for example, especially for the countries who deal with donor. It's very important to respect the date of the document and the date of the posting of the entry. So let's say it has been posted in the wrong period, which is not yet eligible. You have to put it in eligible period, then you have to do the correction. For example, you have a mistake on the description. Instead of writing food pot expat, you write sub-account expat. So it's definitely not the same thing and it's definitely wrong. So you want to correct the description. You want to change the third party. For the case of the third party, mostly is when you have the transfer entry and the third party, the destination or the source of the money was wrong. Instead of from the check, you've written the bank, or instead from the bank, you've written the check, something like that. Then it is a problem on the amount or on a balance sheet account on a direct entry. For example, instead of using the account code for prepayment for rental, for example, you use the payment for something else, then definitely you have to change the account code. So those are another kind of correction, which is not the expense account, which is not the analytic, so you don't go to the correcting wizard. How do you do? Identify which kind of entry I have. We know that we have direct entry, direct invoice, supplier invoice, and we have also manual journal entry or entry booked directly in journal, like the payroll. We have also the recurring entries, for example, or the manual journal entries. Those are booked directly in the journal without using a specific wizard for us. Okay, so for a direct entry, you want to correct those kind of things, amount, third-party description, then you do reversal. The reversal is done in the register. This is why we, at the support of Unifield, we advise the mission to not close the registers before you finish properly all of your manual reconciliation. So if you are still doing the manual reconciliation, do not close the register because you might need to do some reversal in the register, which is far way easier, and every fin assistant could do the correction for you instead of doing something directly in the journal. The supplier invoice not imported. So we were not talking yet about direct invoice, because if normally the direct invoice which is in temp, it means that's still editable. We don't have big problem on that. But when it is paid, we will see it afterwards. But let's say that we have a supplier invoice. Our supplier invoice has been validated, and we realize that there is something to change in the date, in the description, in the third party, in the amount. Or if we want to cancel because the invoice didn't exist, say that it has been paid and then we recreate it, or the fin assistant recreate it, we want to cancel, we do refund cancel. We want to correct, let's say that the third party is not local market, but is Mama Aisha. We want to change it to Mama Aisha, we do correction. And how to do that? We do refund modify. Oh, is there any question, comment? Please raise the hand. Okay, Alan said that it's fine for now. We have from Kenya.
This is Dorcas.
Okay, Dorcas.
Yes, question on the supply invoice not imported. I did not get it clearly on the difference between refund cancel and refund modify. If you could please explain again.
Okay. Cancel is if you have a case that you want to cancel the invoice. You created an invoice, but it didn't exist. For example, you realize that it has been already paid at project level, or you realize that it was the duplication because you've already paid it last month. So you need to cancel it. You need to get rid totally of the entry. So use a refund cancel. Refund correct is the invoice does exist. The invoice is good, but you realize that for that invoice, you need to do some modification. You want to modify the amount. You want to modify the third party, then you need to do the refund modify. Did I reply to your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's continue with Kamine in Sierra Leone. Hello?
Yes. Yeah, hello.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I'm too fast. I will be too fast with the question. It's about when the period is closed.
Okay, the period has
If,
been closed.
yes, if the period has been closed, then which of these corrections would you use with regards wrong third party?
Okay, so you want to correct the third party. So we are in this case. We are in this case because you want to correct the third party.
Yeah.
Okay, you
The
have
third
to
party.
define. You have to define what kind of entry you want to correct. Do you want to correct a direct entry or a supplier invoice? We will see afterward the supplier invoice paid and whatever, and the direct invoice. It's depending on that case for you to identify how to do. For this case, if the period has been closed, it means that the register has been closed, because you could not close the period if you didn't close your register, right? Then, if you close the register, then you do the reversal in the current month register. It's happened, for example, that from project level, people had validated their, finished their closing. Let's say they do their manual reconciliation, but some entries from coordination, like the transfer from coordination, for example, was encoded wrongly the third party. And they already closed their period. They could do the reversal in the next period, and there is no problem on that. Okay? We will talk about the date to use on the correction when we do the practice. This is how to define where is the correction being done. Even for the correcting wizard, if the period has been closed, you still could use the correcting wizard. All of those things you could use during the current period of the entry or afterward. Just what is making the difference? The posting date of the correction. You have to select the appropriate posting date to put your correction in the period which should be in open status and where you want to do your correction. Okay? Did I reply to your question? Okay.
Yeah.
We still have some few people raising their hand. This is very important for us to know that there is the invoice in draft. When you validate it, it becomes open, non-imported. We are at that level. After that, you import it in the register, it becomes open imported. If you had posted the payment entry, it becomes paid. So those different statuses of the invoice, of them specific way of the correcting them. The first one, open not imported, doesn't have yet payment entry.
So I wanted to ask if we have a supply invoice that is still in draft, and the goods had already been received, but they have been turned back to the supplier. So how do we go about that kind of invoice in order to cancel it? Because the supply department want to generate a new invoice with a different PO.
Okay, so this is a specific case which is related to supply. They have one PO, they did the reception, then you have the draft invoice. Yes. Then they realize, oops, there is a problem. I have to send back all of those things to the supplier. Then they do a so-called document in the supply, in the warehouse, kind of sending back the good to the supplier. That will generate automatically this sending back all of the goods or partial of the goods will create directly the refund in draft. So you have the invoice in draft and you have the refund in draft. It can be the invoice is equals to the refund. You validate both of them, then you manually reconcile trade payable entry, and that's fine. Because the invoice, let's say that the invoice is on 61220 is 100,000, and the refund on 61220 is 100,000. They are exactly the same, but in the opposite figure. So you just reconcile the trade payable 15,600, and that's done. But it could happen that they didn't send all of the goods. It's not all of them are broken. Let's say that half of it only. Then you validate the invoice. You validate the 50% refund which was created from the supply sending back the goods. Then you import both of them grouped by partner. You will have to pay the balance.
Just a question. You're saying the refund will be created by supply department?
If they send back from the warehouse the goods, there is a document which is called supplier refund. Is like when you do the reception, you receive the draft invoice. When they send back to the supplier the goods, then at that time, but if, for example, they put it in quarantine, then there is no refund created. So you have to identify with your supply team, what did they do? Did they say, okay, they don't send back it to the supplier, they just put in quarantine and destruction, for example, they will just, destroy the good, then there is no refund you have. So the solution you could do in that is to create manually a refund. Yeah. Refund could be created manually, like it could be created from from this process I show you, or from the good being sent back to the supplier. So it's depending on how the supply department is dealing with this. This is why I do not like really in this training talking about that, because it's depending on how do they manage their business. It could be they just send it to quarantine, then collect back the credit note from the supplier, for example, but they don't send back the good in the system. So what they do is they just clean their warehouse. Warehouse is fine, but we don't have the refund. But if they do send back the goods to the supplier, then in that case we have the refund in the system. So this is why I prefer to focus on the finance part of the business, because that is rare. They send back the goods to the supplier. But indeed in Kenya it could happen because you are supply center. You are not like in a regular mission. They do supply, but it's not their full-time job is to do supply. In Kenya indeed it could happen, and if you have specific strange cases like that, feel free to ask me on top of that. I will advise you on how exactly to deal on the given spot of the situation.
Yes, this is Daniel, Kenya. Yes, I have an invoice that we paid an advance, a deposit to a training invoice. Then when we received the whole amount now, we are supposed to deduct the deposit that we paid so that we could pay the supplier the difference.
Okay, I understand this is a complex case. We are dealing with exactly the same case from Haiti today. Just please post the top desk on it, because it's not a correction. It's normal process. You pay the deposit, you receive the invoice, there is tax to consider. Just post the top desk on it, because it's not general correction. We are not dealing with, we've done one invoice and there is a mistake we want to correct. What I advise to everyone is, if you have some strange cases, that it seems like, I've never seen this. How do? I don't remember the training. You could ask question on top desk. Top desk is not only to solve problem. It could also reply to question. So you say, for example, I have this case that Kenya just raised. Then you explain it. You give me the figure in your system, the reference of the invoice and whatever. I study the case and we talk, and then we solve. We could advise you how to do it in order to not go to the correction when mistakes have been done. Okay? Okay, so that's what we've seen. Invoice not important. Now next step is, if we've imported the invoice, that is that this doesn't have any payment entry, so you could do directly the cancel and the modify. This one has payment entry, and the system do not allow you. If you want to look for the invoice, click on refund modify, for example. The system will say you could not refund this invoice because there is a payment entry booked in time posted status in the register. And you could now check for that payment status and do the correction. So it's depending on what you want to do. Do you want to cancel this invoice? Let's say, for example, you create a check to pay an invoice at project level. Then after coordination inform you that, oh, we already paid that. What's happened then? You have to cancel this invoice with the check. So what you do, you delete the payment. So deleting the payment means you remove the payment from the register. It was been in time posted status, so you remove it. You could use the red cross, click, then it vanished. But then we all know that we have put a white sheet on our supporting document binder, put the stamp on it and say that this has been deleted, and we put the number of the sequence lost. Because the payment entry has been in time posted status, it did have sequence number. When you delete it, the sequence number is lost. So you just replace it with white sheet. We know that, but I just remind everyone to do so. Then after you could do refund cancel. And if you want to correct something, let's say the amount was wrong. When you write the check, you realize that the amount was wrong. Then in that case, you have to delete the payment and to do refund modify. And here happen the question we receive from there. If let's say, for example, that you have to collect back money. There was no business done by Supply at the warehouse. They might be sent the good in quarantine, or they just send it in a destruction and whatever, but they didn't send it back to the supplier. You have to do you hard post entry and you do refund. This refund then has to be edited to be equals to the amount of the payment you will receive from the supplier. Let's say your invoice is 100,000, but they will give you back 30,000. Then you edit the refund to be 30,000. Here, pay attention of the expense account, because the refund is reducing the expense and reducing by the same way the debt against the supplier. So the account of the supplier 15,600 is the same, so that's not a big deal. But here, when you have to edit the refund for this last one, you have to pay attention which account code you have to take under consideration. Let's, for example, consider that you have an invoice. Let me maybe go to Excel. Maybe it's okay. So let's say that the total amount we have 61220, and the amount of this is 10,000, and we have 6122, and this is 20,000. The reduction, this is the invoice. So we have this in debit, and we have in credit, have 30,000, which is on the account code of supplier 15,600. That is our entry. It looks like this. And this is the invoice. Now you have the refund. So the refund is booking the things in opposite. But let's consider that what we send back are all of the, this is office supply. This is fuel. So let's say that the fuels are all good, but the office supply, we send 50,000 back to the supplier, or we collect back money from the office supply only. In that case, we have 61220, and it's not in debit in the refund, so we credit like that, and the account code of the supplier, which is this 5,000. What do I mean is that you have to pay attention which account code to take here, corresponding on what is the things to reduce. Because here we have the expense raised on 10,020, and here you have the expense reduced on 5,000. So you have to pay attention which account code to take under consideration when you have to edit the refund, when money has to be received back from the supplier. If the refund was created automatically from the supply because they did send the office supply for 5,000 to the supplier, Unifield will create automatically this entry in draft. Then you just could validate it and validate the invoice, import all of them together, and pay. The balance will be 25,000. This is the case when the invoice has been imported. Okay, we have from Sierra Leone.
Yeah, I have a question regarding this refund. It was operational advance the supply department took. They created an invoice, and later on the refund to the office, the operational advance, and they say they did not buy again. So, but the draft, we had nothing to do with the draft. What shall we do now with the draft? Do we still have to refund on this draft or cancel it?
Okay, here I just raise, we are all, maybe few of us are native speaker in English. When I am saying refund, cancel, refund, modify, refund, this is the name of the process. In Unifield is called refund. Doesn't mean refund, cancel that there is money to be taken. There is money to be taken back on the refund only. Okay? You have a case that you give operating advance to your supply department. Right. They went and they did the reception of the goods in the system. then they tell back that, oops, that didn't exist. First of all, you have to tell them, so where did you put the things you received? Because you have, at finance department, we have the supplier invoice, fine. But that, what is the counterpart in supply department? Is that their stock has been raised. Let's say that for this purchase, we are talking about 10 barrels of petrol for the car. So it means that you receive the invoice for 10 barrels in draft, but it means also that they have 10 barrels more in their warehouse. Where they did go? How do they justify now that there was no reception and they have done the reception? Yeah, this has to be clarified between the supply and the financing, that what happened. I agree that there is a bit problem here and there, amount has been changed, that is something else. But if you say that you received 10 barrels and then you say that, I didn't receive 10 barrels, so what's happened to your warehouse? Your warehouse is completely wrong now. That's one question. But let's say that they did it mistakenly and then they say that we already fix it by physical inventory, because that is their way of cheating. They just erase the inventory and put back in the good amount again. So we already fixed it in physical inventory, so we could not help you. What you do, it goes back to the invoice not imported. You validate the invoice and you do refund cancel. Because from Unifield version 5, I guess, which is more than 1 year ago, we could not anymore delete a draft invoice from a PO. Previously, it was possible. So it was just a simple delete the invoice and fine, you are fine. But now you could not do it anymore. You have to validate this invoice and you have to cancel this invoice. Okay? In that case. But before doing that process, just go to see them. How did you clean? Because if they send back, they receive the barrels, they realize that all of the barrels of petrol were mixed with water, for example, and definitely they will not put it in MSF car. They send it back to the supplier. In that case, there is a refund automatically created by the system. So you have to validate the invoice and the full refund. Then you manually reconcile the account code for partner 15600 and the entries will be set as paid. So it's fine. It will be reconciled, the invoice and the refund. But you have to manually reconcile them. I have some more questions.
Hello, this is Masood. I had a question. Supplier invoice refund after hard posting in the SEC. Can you show us a demo? How can we correct supplier invoice after hard posting in the SEC register?
You hard post already. We are not yet there. Come on. We are talking about not hard posted yet. Then after there is another one. So you just wait a bit, then you will see the answer. Okay?
Okay.
We said that there is imported, there is not imported, there is imported in TAMP, then there will be imported hard posted, which means paid. Then we will see how to do it. Naima?
Yes, can you hear me? Okay, I'm still trying to understand this refund. So the cancel and the correct, I understand that we need to first delete the payment from the register, then do the refund cancel or refund modify. Yeah. But now for the money back, we have to hard post that line.
Yeah.
So we had posted
because you could not, between you and me, you could not collect back money if you didn't give money. And giving money means that you paid, and paid means you hard posted the payment entry. So you could not use the refund if you didn't pay the invoice yet in hard posted status. This is why you have to hard post the entry and to do your refund. And this is the same process to correct when we will see for the answer from Alan previously. When you've hard posted, so this case it was not hard posted, you have to hard post. But if it has been hard posted, then the same process, you have to refund the refund.
Okay, on the hard post is correct. Okay, I understand.
Yeah. Either it was hard posted, or either you have to first hard post, or for example, it might happen like that. Sometimes I've been in the field. I know how do we do. Sometimes you write the check, and you didn't write the entry in Unifield. You didn't validate the invoice. Normally, you should do all of those processes at the same time. But sometimes people just write the check and pay it. Then they have the credit note from them for some reason. So what they have, you have a draft invoice, you have to validate, import, hard post, do refund, then edit your refund to have your credit note. This is in case you didn't do your process normally. But if you do your process normally, you should have imported, issue your check, you do something else, waiting the review of the accounting to hard post, because that's the case here. This case happened in the middle. This case happened in the middle of the time when you write your check, you validate the invoice, write the check, import it in the check register, for example, then you do something else, waiting for the review of the accounting to hard post, because we do not hard post on daily basis. In between of that, you save information that, oh, we will get back 5,000. Then you want to encode this 5,000 because there is an over check you have to write to the same supplier the same month, because there is an over invoice and you want to combine them to deduce the credit note to the invoice. So what you do, you hard post then this, you do on the refund. Could not do on the refund if the entry has not been hard posted, means that the invoice will be paid.
Okay. So if when we do the refund, so if we have a credit note from the supplier, maybe some items have been returned, everything. So does Unifield recognize that we have this refund for this particular supplier? If maybe there's another PO that we have to make against the supplier, so show you there's money in that account for that particular supplier.
Unifield will not be flagged on your entry screen that there is a refund. When you do the pending payment,
I can see
you
there.
go for your pending payment.
Yes.
After you have your refund invoice, you click on add. Then here you could put 60, and the partner name, for example, what I put is J. Is there any J? Let's say this one, and I search. Then here I don't have, but normally in that case you will have the invoice listed in use. Then you will have plus. So you select. You do the so-called. Okay, I have only one, but let's say, then you use this button, import grouped by partner. So you have here amount minus 25. Let's say you have another amount plus, I don't know. Then the system will do the calculation of the difference. But it will not flag. You have to search for it. You have to know it that you have a credit from this supplier and you want to deduce it. Anyway, to be able to do so, you have to have it on hand. I mean, you have the physical invoice plus the credit note. Then on your calculator, you are doing the difference, and Unifield will do the same difference. So you search for the invoice and the credit note when you do the pending payment.
Okay.
Does it reply to the question?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, so we have Stephanie.
Your voice was delayed, so it was not really possible to understand. You were explaining this import group, the function of that.
The import group. So when you pay using pending payment, this you search for the entry you want to pay. Okay, here I have two entries from the same. Is this it? Yeah, the same partner. The import group by partner is used in order. I have those two entries, two lines, and I want to pay them together to the same partner. I want to write one check for them. It might be 2 lines, it might be 20. Then you click on import grouped by partner. If you have the same account code, then it will do the total. Then you write only one payment. That's the use of this import group by partner. If you want to write, let's say it's the same supplier, but you want to have two different payments, then you import single import. You will have 2 lines here. But you have to have the same account code and the same partner to be able to group by partner. Did it reply to your question?
Thank you, yeah.
So then we have the paid supplier invoice or direct invoice. DI is direct invoice, SI is supplier invoice. So we have here the case of paid supplier invoice or direct invoice. What does it mean? You import the invoice and you hard post the entry. Then you realize that there is a mistake. Either you want to cancel, either you want to correct, either there is money back. The only way a paid invoice, direct or supplier invoice, is to do refund. So here previously, look, there was, because this was in temp hard post entry and do refund. But for our case now, because it has been paid, the entry has been hard posted, so the action to do either, here we have two branches, money has to be received, or you want to do an overcorrection, you have to do first refund. So let's take the case that you want to cancel. You have to do refund, validate the refund 100% to cancel the invoice. But then you have to import this invoice in the same register where you have paid the initial one. So you have to import the refund in the same register to cancel the payment. Because for paid supplier invoice or direct invoice, you have two problems. You have the booking of the invoice and you have the booking of the payment. All of them are posted. If you want to cancel both of them, you have to use refund, validate, cancel those exist anymore because you could not cancel something you paid. So what you do, refund. So refund 100%, import this 100%, hard post the entry. Then that canceled the initial invoice. After that, you could consider, I need to correct. Then you create a new invoice, do the modification, and import it again. But there is money back. In that case, you do not need to cancel. You just do refund, edit the refund in the amount of what you want to receive from the supplier. Question there. So for paid invoice or paid direct invoice, you have to pass by refund first. If it's just to receive money back, then you edit the refund at the amount you have to receive. Then you import the group by partner afterwards. If you want to cancel, you have to do the refund at 100%, then import it. If you want to modify after that, you duplicate your invoice or create another direct invoice and import the invoice in the register. Then you do your correction. Then there is a last case that we have to consider, something else, which means manual journal entry, validated payroll, recurring entry, one leg of payroll entry. Whatsoever, there is a mistake on those things, and mostly for those things, the mistakes are not for all of the entry. The mistakes are for one part of this entry. Then, in that case, it's rarely that you have the full payroll entry has been wrong. But it might happen, for example, that, like my case there, the third party, my tax, I use the Social Security as partner. So it's definitively wrong because you don't pay the tax to the Social Security. You pay the Social Security to the Social Security and tax at tax office. This case, I don't need to reverse fully my payroll. I could just book a manual journal entry to change the third party from, so now, from this one which was credited, I debit this on Mali Pension Fund AMPF. Then after that, I credit back on the good tax office of Mali. So this is the case of the last one. Okay, here we have the manual journal entry or the payroll validated or one leg of an entry, which means that like this case, you have only one leg. All of the detail of the payroll are fine, but this one leg has a mistake. Then I have to do manual journal entry. So please, let us not abuse of the use of manual journal entry to do correction. Whenever it could be refund, let's do refund. Whenever it could be reversed, let's reverse. And whenever it could be used on correction wizard, let's do correction wizard. So I advise everyone to print this full picture of the correction matrix to have the idea, how do I do. Here, I didn't do the distinction between delete the entry and not delete the entry, but if you want to cancel, you do cancel. If you want to correct, you do correct. If you want to get money back, you do refund. But above, we have the exact distinction between not imported, imported, and paid. Here, I added small things. So where the entries are booked, it's important for us at FinCo level, at FinCo Assist, to understand if I use the correcting wizard. There is two possibilities. If I in open period, if I correct only the analytic, So this part, please take note because I didn't put here. The period is open. Unifield just update the analytical distribution. There is no correcting entry. How do you do? Look back your binder and you edit, you modify the analytic on the accounting stamp. It has been on project 2. You changed it in project 3. Fine. Unifield updates it, and in the binder, in the supporting document, you have to remember to modify that. There is no OD, so you have to pay attention when the correction has been done. You have to modify also on this on the stamp, and it could be done by the finance system. If you change the account code, there is a OD created by the system. What we say that finance department, that if you have one accounting move, which is equals to one journal entry, which is we should have absolutely one justification supporting document to that. So you have to print your OD and explain why did you change the account code, because there is an OD. Sometimes we do this correcting wizard, click, 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 click. We will see that it's just a question of click, click. So we do not realize ourselves that we Unifield have booked an OD. So what I advise to the people is you do all of your correction here and there and there and there. Then at the end of the day, you go back to see your ODs. So how to do so? You go to journal entries, then you look for the type correction and you search, you put the period, you search. So you have this OD, then you could, if this OD has been created from scratch, you know that. This one was created from scratch. But because to know that, this is a manual here. This is also good information for you. Huh? This is manual. So it means that you created it by yourself. You start to create or import it. But if it was created by the system, it will be written here automatic. So in that case, you print this and explain why it's code. And I advise the people to journal items, but go to the journal entries and print it, taking the. So how do? You print it like that. Then it has all of the details except the analytic, which is not visible. And do not forget to do so. So you do it when you check all of the binders and ensure that the ODs, you have 20 ODs, do you have until the number 20 on the OD? Okay? Do we have question?
Stefania,
yes.
Can
Tell
I?
me. Yeah.
Okay. This is the only page in which you can actually see written down manual for a manual correction?
I think so, huh?
Okay.
Because if you go here like that, here you have the status, and it doesn't show you that it has been created manually. If we go to the journal items, it doesn't show you, just show valid or invalid. It doesn't show you. So the only place to know that it has been created manually is in journal entries. As far as I know until now. Here, for example, this one was created manually too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I make a list, let's say for the month of the OD journal, I won't see anywhere else written down manual.
Which one was? Yes.
Okay.
And that's why I like people printing this part of the screen if it is possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's so long, so just impossible. But if it's possible to print it, then you have the status here that it has been created manually or automatically by the system.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So that is the difference. If the period has been closed, even your correction, analytic correction, will create an analytic OD. For the reversal, because you do it in the register itself, so it is in the register where you do the reversal. So it could be in the bank check and a case. It happened, for example, that you post an entry in the cash, but it was not in the cash, but in the safe. So in that case, you have to reverse in the cash and go to the safe to book the entry. In that case, one of the reversal is in the cash and the correcting is in the safe. But anyway, all of them, they are in the liquidity journal. All of the refund, they are in the PUF journal. The name of the journal is PUF for refund. So when you do the refund, the system will select automatically this PUF, and it's not possible anymore to change the journal today. You just click on refund, then you will have the PUF which is selected automatically by the system. It's important because when you use, there is a feature today which is new, and I like it very much, so I want to share it to all of the FinCos also, which is called related entries. So it's kind of family. It's available in journal items. Then you check one line, then you go to related entries, then Unifield will show you all of the entries which has the same sequence number and the same reference field as. This is something from the last release, and I just love it. So let's say, for example, for this invoice, you want to know if it has been paid, and if yes, how was it paid? Was it by check? Was it by bank? And did we refund it already? Yes or not? So to know that, you click on the pure number, one of the leg, then you go to related entries, and Unifield will show you that this invoice, look here, you have, this is the trade payable, this is the invoice, number of invoices number 8, and this invoice has been paid by check, but the check has not yet imported in the bank. If it has been imported in the bank, then you have also the bank entries out there. If it had been refunded, then you'll have the pure also showing in the related entries. So it's very useful to audit and track back what's happened to a given entry. So then for the manual journal entry, it's depending on which journal you select, and mostly we use two major journals when we do the manual journal entries. One is the audit journal and one human resource journal. When we book our per diem, for example, or when we do action on something like that, mostly we use the human resource. Please check the Supplier on this part of the presentation. We will not do it because we will do it in practice. I put it in the presentation for you to follow how to use the correcting wizard, for example, how to do the refund, but we will do directly the practice. We now have question from Stephanie.
Yeah, where can we download this? Because I've tried and I couldn't see it before.
When you open the panel like this is the button to open, this one.
Yeah.
When you open, you have all of those things there. Yes. Then you have timer, whatever. Then you have materials.
Okay.
Then in materials, you have 14 correction English short. So you click on this blue link. Do you see the link?
Yes, I see it. Then I can just download it.
Okay. Fine.
Okay.
So everyone who wants to download, because when the training is over, I think it's not available anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. So please go, and the exercise is this one. So you could download the exercise. We hear you now.
You can hear me now.
Yeah.
Okay. Wrong journal entry was done for correction. It would have been, as explained, it would have been in the liquidity journal, but was done in OD journal. Now, if you want, how do you go about this with a correction? Because if you, it would have been in the cash journal, but OD was used to do the correction. It is 21,600. Now,
yes.
So how do you go about to do this reversal?
Okay. For that case, we have to study it very specifically. Here, when I use the process I showed today, then the correction goes to those journals. Yeah. If you've done something else, we have to consider if the correction had corrected the problem or not. If that is the case, if it's not in the good journal, fine. If it didn't correct, then we have to consider how to correct it properly. But here, these journals I show here, okay? So this is using that part. What is the consequence you have? Because at your level as FinCo assist, it's important to understand where is the result of the things you do. It's not like at the level of the one doing the data entry, direct invoice. Wherever it goes, it's fine. I have my direct entry. But for you at the level of FinCo, you have to understand where does it go. And especially when you use this related entry, you could see, this is the pure. The pure is the invoice. okay? Because those ones, they are impure, those ones, they are impure. Then this is the cash, this was the payment. Or this is the check, this is the check entry, then this is the bank entry for the payment of the check. So you could trust it back, okay? For your case, if you do a correction using, and that's the aim of this training is for us to not abuse of the manual journal entry. So let's say that we've done it already. We have to check if your correction has corrected the problem. Yes, then there is no need. It's not a big deal about the journal at that level. But if the correction didn't correct the issue, then at that case, we have to reconsider everything properly. Yes. I want to cancel an invoice which has not been imported. I could import the manual journal entry for that. It's not wrong. Then I select the journal. It's definitely not wrong. But this is not how Unifield was designed. How Unifield was designed is not to abuse of manual journal entry. I just want to share to everyone the philosophy of Unifield. Unifield was developed by MSF for MSF in the shape of MSF. We know that there are people who knows about double accounting in MSF, but there are lots of people who don't know double accounting in MSF. It could be the case of the fin assistant or whoever who doesn't feel comfortable in double accounting. So what we did is what they, not we, did is to create the registers to do direct entries. Or we have this, the invoices are kind of a tool, a wizard. We know that we fill an invoice, we have the debit of the account 6 and the credit of the account 15,600. But when we create ourselves our invoice, we are not talking about which account go to debit, which account go to credit, right? So this is a tool which was given to ensure that the accounting figures are good. And those reversal processes are tools also to be sure you are good in double accounting, not good in double accounting. If you understand that you have to do a refund, you have to do a refund. In that case, the system will book exactly the debit of the account 15,600 and the credit of the expense account you put there. So that's why the use of this. So our objective is to say booking a manual journal entry to correct everything is definitely fine. But we have lots of tools which are above. So this is the one we use today, not we use, but lots of people are abusing today. But we have lots of secure tools which are put in Unifield, which are given to us, and we don't use them, and we create manual journal entry where we have to identify which account code to debit, which account code to credit. Whenever we do the mistake on that, then all of the process is completely wrong. And we have to identify which journal we have to use. Remember, when we do our invoice, there is no one saying that it has to go to the pure. It goes automatically to the pure. If we use the pure, it goes automatically to the pure when we use refund. But when we do our manual journal entry, we are the master of everything. We have to identify which account code to do, which period to take, which to debit, and which to credit. And that has to be done on limited case only in order to limit also the mistakes. That's why this training is. So this is to share the general philosophy of the things. Did it reply to your question? Okay. Fine now. So I need a volunteer to help me. Do you have the exercise in front of you? We have exercise. Let's do the number 1. Let's go to the entry number 1, which is the first one below. This entry has been allocated on the wrong project code. So we will see how to use the coding wizard. So let's scroll down this entry, per diem. Let's say that it was allocated on CM001, but we want to change it in CM005. So the correcting wizard, the accounting correcting wizard is the proper name, is the magnifying glass from the register.
Yeah.
So click on the magnifying glass. We call it in French loop. And if you are from the journal, then you have it in form of open envelope. So wait a minute.
Yeah.
Here, look, the cost center is CM001. So click on the envelope. Yeah, click on the envelope. Then about the correction date. This could be used in open period or in closed period. So if, please take note, if the period is still open, then you have to take the posting date of the entry, which is written here as correcting date. It is in the accounting SOP. So the correction date we take is the posting date of the entry if the period is still open. If the periods have been closed, then you take the end of the date of the period you want to close. Let me explain. This, for example, was entry booked in October. We are in 2nd of December. We are already physically in December, but we are doing the closing of November. So the date we use then is 30th of November. The idea is, especially for the country like Sierra Leone, like Ethiopia, like Congo, where the right change is moving like crazy, to not make lots of difference of changes between the initial entry and the correction. Okay? So if the period is still open, let's say that we are in 2nd of December. We are closing November. And when closing November, we realize that there is a mistake. So if you don't fill this date here, the date will be the date of today, which will be 2nd of December in that case. Then there will be a difference of balance between the previous month and the current month. So to make the correction in the period we want, we have to put it in, for this case, in November. That is replying to the previous question about which period I have to use on my correction. Second point, when we do the refund, we create a refund, pay attention, the refund has to be in the period where you want to import it. Again, let's say we are in 2nd of December, and we are doing a refund of an invoice in November. If you didn't put the correct document and posting date mostly, then it will be in December. Then when you want to import in November this refund, you will not find the refund. Then you start to get, Unifield is not working, I have a problem. The fact is that you could import it in December, the date, and
so still November.
What looks like a bit low, yeah, this date. The same date of the posting date, correct the same, yeah. So we select. So this has to determine the period is open. Click on the analytic icon. And use and replace the code with Refund. Sorry, one.
Not two.
Yeah, problem. 05.
No two.
And the flop this. It will have for modification.
Update.
Yeah, and after click on correct it below. And look, the customer can't see. There is no tick because the period is still open. So if you just update that, to take your ICM005 instead of 0. Yeah, so no, this happened, don't worry. Then let's say that we said that the correcting wizard could correct also the account code. Let's say, for example, that this was not a non-tax allowance, but this was a health cost. Let's say. So we will click back again in the envelope. I just want to show the two possibilities on how to use this. The correcting date is 1st of November again.
We use the same first.
Yeah. This is just to show how to use it to correct the account code. the account code is visible directly there, so you use the pencil. And remove the account code non-taxable. And let's say that we put 66230. Oh, still not stuff something, okay? Then we save the entry. Then we click correct. This is a funny history. When you correct the account code, the system writes correct. But when you correct the analytic, it says corrected. But the meaning is corrected anyway. And look what's happened to our envelope. The envelope has been closed. And click back on the envelope, the closed envelope with the red band on it. Let's click on it. And we see that Unifield had created an OD number 3, for the reversal and the correcting of the entry. So here, the rev is cancelling the initial entry with the same account code as initial, and the core is putting the new account code we put. So what's happened, this is where I told you that sometimes you just have, I did my correction, fine. But it means that on the full report, you have those three colors lines, the blue, usual, there is a red, and there is a green for the rev and the core. In the full report, this will be shown if the entry is in the register. And for the journal, you have the core and the rev and the OD entry which was created. So this has to be printed and justify why did you change on a per diem entry, the description size per diem, and you change it to national health cost of national staff. Our correction doesn't make sense, but I just want to show you how to do the correction. Okay? Thank you very much, Cabinet. Let's look for someone else to do the next exercise. There is a functionality to do the mass reallocation, but that one is not happening very often, so we'll not spend time on doing it. But there is a possibility to allocate 3 or 5 entries in one cost center when, for example, you have new donor or when you have new project with new cost center which was validated in an existing mission. But those are rare cases. But here we have to update the analytical distribution for the account code of a posted entry. It could be from the register, you could go from the journal directly. Questions? The number 3, which is the reversal. So we have a case of a sub account for Philippe, which was written on third party for Nancy. So we have to modify the third party. Look for the entry number 3. This is a modification from accounting department. When we correct direct entry, if the correction is on amount, third party journal, document date, then we do reversal. If the correction is on third party staff or external partner, account code or description, then we do manual journal entry. Do the so-called reversal. Reversal is to remove this entry from Nancy and to put it back on Philip. How do? We do the duplication of the entry. Duplication could be used for the field assistant. So if there is any field assistant around us, duplication could be used when you have to go to do the same things. Mostly I advise people to use it for daily worker, for example, because in project level, sometimes you have lots of daily worker entry and those are direct entry. So for direct entry, you could duplicate the register. Okay? Direct invoice never duplicate. Pay attention. Click on the duplicate button, which is this one. This is how to do fast. You could create it manually. Edit your entry above the screen. Here in Unifield, just note information for everyone. When you duplicate an entry on purpose or mistakenly, it has to be on the top of the screen. So it is easy to see, and that's really well done. It means that in a register, when you have 200 entry, you don't need to scroll inside of the register to check if there was a mistakenly duplicated entry. They are on top. Okay, so click on the pencil, and instead of having copy at description, we put rev, R-E-V in capital letter, V, rev, dash, okay? So every time you do rev, you write rev dash and then the initial description, whatever was been there. So now there is nothing to change yet. we have to put the amount instead of out, we put it in. So the amount was 50 or how? Control X from out and Control V in. In Unifield, right click doesn't work, but Control C and Control V does work. So that's good idea I give to everyone I talk with, and then remove the amount out. So that's why Control X is the solution. Then save the entries and hard post the entries. That's how to reverse. So in case you encode the entry in the wrong register, you reverse and that's it, and you go to create the new entry in the good register. If it is a correction in the same register, so click on the floppy disk, please, and we hard post the entry. Let me just show. Here we had the amount out for Nancy, and now we have the amount in for Nancy. This is the reversal entry. Then we have to do correct, the core. So to do the core, we come back in here and we duplicate the entry again. So please edit it with the pencil, the duplication above. And instead of copy, we put in capital R, so core. Some of you put core with double R, C-O-R-R. We say we write C-O-R only. C-O-R, dash. And now we have to correct the third party instead of Nancy, so we remove Nancy, delete, and we put Philippe. So Philippe, and we save the entry with the floppy disk, and we hard post the entry. That's how we do the reversal of an entry. Is there any question?
Is it hard and fast rule that to put dash, or if you can use colon?
No, dash. Let me show you why. If you go to journal entries and we go to the correction, the one which was created automatically by the system, look, the system use rev dash and core dash. Core 1 is first correction. If you do again, then there will be maybe core 2. So we are trying to imitate the same process when we do the reversal. This is why we put rev dash core dash. We have a question from Naima.
My question will be on the supporting document. So for all these three entries, what supporting document will we use? Will we use the receipts for a sub-account withdrawal, or is there something additional that we need to print out of Unifield?
I will ask someone from headquarters to reply to that. Stefania, could you please help us? So I would say the same, but
the same identical, and then you also write why you're making the change.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Shamare. We need someone else to do the refund or participate. Anne?
No, I want to just say something about the documents.
Yes.
I think if you use the initial booking instead of Philip was Nance, and then you use that as a supporting document, that will show that this has been corrected. But if you use the new booking, then you don't know what is correct. Do you get me?
Yeah, okay. So the initial entry was entry number 3. You advise us to print this?
Yes, the initial document booking was instead of Nancy, it was Philip.
Yeah, this one.
So if you print that one and as a supporting document of the new booking, because the new booking, then you see that Philip
the ref is just to be corrected. Yeah.
But if you still use the corrected document as a supported document, then you don't know what is being corrected. Do you get me?
Yeah, definitely. So here, for example, we could consider like printing it. So please refer to your FFA how to do it, and maybe among you, FFA, you could talk about it and then give, let's say, some guidance to the people in the field. Please refer also to the SOP. It might be that the SOP says something about that. So we have Farzana. Okay, you want to do the exercise. So now let's try to consider what refund. So we have an invoice which was number 7. Where was it paid? Then I search invoice. Then I use the thing I just showed you previously on related entries to see where was it paid. So here that it has the check number 67 is the code of the reader, and the entry is number 4. So instead of I open I go to check on it manually. I look for the pure number. I use the related entry. Then I see that my entry was being booked in check number 4. So now I go back and I open the check, and I have the check number which is in. So here we have an invoice. It was imported in TAMP, and the amount is wrong. So we have to do the modify. So first of all, we have to do is to delete this payment entry. It asks always if you to delete it. Okay, so we now did the first step, we delete the payment entry. Then we go to supplier invoices, and we look for the supplier invoice number 7. And we want to do the refund modify. Okay, correction of amount. The document date is 9th and posting date is 9th. Then refund we have to do is not refund, but refund modify. Then we click on refund. So now our refund invoice has been paid, and our initial invoice, if we go here to refresh with F5, I hope it's refreshed, then it has been set as paid. But if we go back to supplier invoices, then we have a copy of this with this is what we typed as description, and we have the source document, which is the reference of the initial invoice. Then we could edit this invoice now. Please use the pencil to modify the amount, pencil. And we say that the amount is 2,200. Yeah, then we save it, save and close. Then we put the amount, total amount in here, the same amount. And we could validate the invoice. It's depending on what we want to correct. If we want to correct the currency, you correct the currency. If you want to correct the third party, you correct third party. Our case, we corrected the amount, then you click on validate. Please go ahead. This is open now. So we go to our register and we go to pending payment, please. And we could import the invoice. So now we correct back the 2200 instead of 2000. So that's how we do the correction. Thank you very much. If someone has question in general, this is one question which was asked previously. Okay, so the entry has been hard posted and we want to correct. So we look for the invoice. We want to correct the amount. It has been paid already. Now there is a mistake on the amount. What we do, we go to refund. Mistake of amount, let's say. Document date and posting date is the same as the initial invoice. Now we have to do refund. Then we edit this refund. We don't edit this refund, we validate it at 100%. Then we go to our register, then we import it via pending payment, the refund. So now I import it. In the check, the same thing, just in terms of check number, you do check number 123, 123R as reversal, 123-C as correction. So here, if I do like that, then it means that I have the invoice and I have the refund which was imported. Now it means like I didn't do anything. Then I go back to look my. You go back to look for your paid invoice. Then click on save and click on duplicate. Then you modify to become 3000. Save and close. Replace the amount here and click on validate.
The relative entry.
This is a possibility from one journal item to see the related journal items, which is having the same sequence number, having the same reference field with it, and having the same reconciliation code, take a number of a pure number. So I go to sequence entry, I search for this entry. So this is my invoice. I want to know which are all of the entries related to this one, the nice one is to take the balance sheet account, because the balance sheet has what is the reconciliation code. If you select the expense account from your invoice, then it will not bring eventually something from the reconciliation entry. You are willing to know, was this invoice paid? If yes, where was it from? This was one of the huge questions from Unifield we had from the beginning. So you click on related entries, then the system now shows me you have the initial invoice, you have the first refund. The invoice was 2,000 in the beginning, you remember? Then after it, we refund it. After we create 2,200, then that 2,200 we paid. Then we realize that that 2,200 is not good. Then because I take the same thing to do the fast exercise, then we do the refund. Then we import the refund in the register. Then we say that it was not good again, this one. We have to put it 3,000 and we paid the 3,000. All of the historic of the correction of this life is shown in one single search.
Thank you.
Then we have Stefania.
In this case, when you redo the invoice with the new amounts, what is the new one, the one which is correct? If it was connected to the PO, the connection is lost. Is that correct?
Yes, the connection to the PO is lost.
Okay.
But when you do the duplicating of the invoice, you could fill the free reference.
Yeah.
It keeps the free reference or the source document. The source document keep the initial entry, so that helped us to make the link. So either you fill this field, either you fill that one which is empty now, which is dark now, so difficult to see. This one, either you fill this one, then it will populate the reference field of your entry, then it will make the link with your entry, and that will show in related entry.
Okay.
One last question from Naima.
Yes, I just have a quick question on the currencies of the supplier invoices. Huh?
Yeah.
So when we set up the supplier, the initial stages, the place where we choose default currency and the purchasing currency.
Yes.
If you can maybe explain those two currencies, because does it in any way affect the supplier invoice against that particular supplier?
Here we have a supplier, and you have the default pure currency, and you have the FO currency. FO currency, it's not a big deal because it's only important for internal partners where there are FO to be sent. So when we create a new supplier, default currency will be euro everywhere. If you do not change this one, then let's see, this is Apollo Hospital. If you create a direct invoice, it's not a big deal because it takes automatically the currency of the register, because direct invoice is created inside of the register. But for the supplier invoice, because it's created outside of the register, so then let's say we create an invoice on Apollo. So when you create one, first of all, when this is empty, this is euro per default. So I start to type my invoice to Apollo, okay? And look, this stays in euro. So if I just almost asleep in my job and I don't change it, my invoice will be in euro. And it happened that when you try to import it in the register, then you don't find it because it's not in the good currency. In that case, you have to do refund, modify.
Okay.
So here you have to take it USD, for example, and change it manually. Where do we want to go in that is when you create your supplier, our Apollo, where is Apollo? Okay. Here, put the good, I don't have in this profile, I don't have the right to change the currency. Please put the good currency in there, which means your daily currency when you work with this supplier, because that created a problem, happened to us in Lebanon one day long ago. One has created the PO. I think we could not create PO with this profile, but if you create a PO, the PO will be in euro too if you don't change it manually. And what happened is that they did 1 million of local currency purchase of whatever, then it was in euro, then the commitment voucher get out, and then they validated the commitment voucher. Then at the end of the day, there was no more budget available, and everyone was shouting there is a problem. The issue is that the currency here was euro, So when they create PO, but if I create PO and they put the supplier into Apollo, it will show up in the currency here, euro. But it could be changed manually. So to avoid those kind of mistakes, which 1 million of euro is not 1 million of Lebanese pound for sure. So to avoid that kind of mistake, this has to be done properly. And where is this? The supplier module has to be done properly. So it happens sometimes that you deal with two currencies, for example, in Congo, then what is the most useful one, what is the most frequent one, put it there. At least you do the modification, not on daily basis. Did it reply to your question?
Yes, answered. Thank you very much.
There was exercise about how to do the manual journal entry. We ran low of time, so we'll not do that. But I think that at FinCo level, we are doing manual journal entry. Just I want to remind everyone, because this is a question. If you want to create manually, we know that we create new. You have to figure out which account code to debit and which account code to credit. But please, just remind that the import is from this module, import entries. And please remind that import is not, it's not from here. This one. It's not from there. Okay? This is for everyone's reminder, because sometimes people create their import file, click there, and it doesn't work. It definitely doesn't work, and I think they should remove it. It is from that places to import. Then we have an import file. Maybe I show it. Then we select it. We put in the import file. There is something nice I want to show you. When you have your import file, you select a posting date here and the period. This period, when you create the import file, do not try to type it manually. Do not try to edit it. I spent half a day to try to consider which format is accepted. None of them. So just the idea, export something in November from Unifield and copy paste the value there. So that's the only trick to fill the period. The date you could take from this format and then you could modify it. But here you select the date of the import file, it is end of November. The period has to be in the same as the posting date. That is one thing which is creating lots of mistake on the import file. Then when you go to import it, you have to have the same posting date here, which is the date in the import file, and then you click on import and feel free to click on refresh, and the system has imported successfully the entries. This entry now is, if you search, showed here as unposted, and if you look all of the entries here, and this one is not imported and not posted yet, you could not delete from there. You have to look where was it created in the cache, and you could delete from the cache register. But the manual journal entry could be deleted from here. So what we advise is when you do your manual journal entries or you import, check if that would correct your problem. So go back to the journal items, search for the account code and the third party and whatever. If it is okay, then post. If it doesn't correct your problem, then no big deal, just delete it and it is gone. So that's just general advice on how to use the import file or how to create the import file. So now we finished the training. Thank you very much. We have 19 participants in the application, but I know that we were something like among 30 because people are sitting together. So we have to close the training today. Thank you very much. If you have any question, any concern, please feel free. I am full-time support for Unifield. I don't do something else besides that. So do not say that, oh, it might be disturbed here. No, this is my job to be disturbed by the Unifield questions. So feel free and send me on top desk on the support email and ask us questions. If you have feeling like I'm not very sure about this on that, not only on correction, on everything, feel free to contact the top desk. And when I am out, there is always someone checking the top desk. Here in Amsterdam, we pay attention that the support is available at least during the working time. So, ladies, gentlemen, thank you very much for the training, attending the training. It was very participative. Personally, I like this training because everyone participated.